pride. And there's so much we can say about Lou.
Be careful.
Today, he will be, I'll be brief, because he's giving us a brief history of Savage Arms, but he wears a lot of hats, right? He is our city historian. He is on countless committees and commissions. He is a wonderful volunteer here at the History Center. He was the 2021 Volunteer of the Year. And it's things like this, the presentation today, that make Lou a wonderful human being in our community. So here is Lou Prada.
Wow, that's a good picture. It's my obituary picture. Okay. So this is a brief history. Okay, I've given it now about 4 or 5 times. If you have any questions, Frank Tomato's here to answer them. I'm not going to do that. No, anyway, there's a lot of history in the audience here, a lot of very intelligent people, so I'm a little intimidated. I first got involved in learning about Savage Arms when Rebecca called and said this organization called Scope wanted a presentation for their banquet. Then COVID hit, and then we never had, I never heard from these people from Rochester. So apparently Scope is a Second Amendment rights education group, and they were having some kind of an event planned for Breezes in North Utica, and they wanted this. Trying to get a hold of them was brutal, but I did eventually, and then they told me that Oliver North was going to be the speaker. What the hell you want me for? I said, I can't top that. Well, they didn't really want to talk. They just wanted a display in the background. And I was kind of glad because Oliver North walked in and the first thing he said is, wow, my first gun was a Savage. I said, oh, that's pretty cool. And he was telling me all the stories going hunting with his father. So that was pretty neat. But as I learned about Savage Arms, I was more and more impressed. And of course, after the fire at Charlestown, obviously it became a little more meaningful. All right, so here we go. Let's first look at the guy named Savage. This is Arthur Savage. Arthur Savage was kind of a restless inventor. I call him that because he was a man that was born in Jamaica. He went to England to get educated. He then, while he was there, trained as an artist. He went and became an illustrator for their local London paper, and then decided he was going to leave and go to Australia because he wanted to find black opals. So, that goes hand in hand, right? Illustrator, black opals, sure. So then, while he's there, he gets kidnapped, and he's held in captivity by some natives for a couple of years. He's released, and he spends 11 more years there. This time we're going to raise cattle. Yeah, artists, opals, cattle, sure. All goes hand in hand. Then he decided to go back home to Jamaica and try and plant coffee. Okay, we're going to do coffee now. While he's there, he starts to tinker with firearms and the design of firearms. He moves to New York City to work for, back in his original plan, publishing. And while he's there, he's working on that gun design a little bit more. He comes here to Utica in 1891, but this time he's going to work on the railroad. Okay, restless, very restless. Then in 1892, he decides that his rifle's ready to be entered into trials. In other words, somebody will adopt it and build it, and it didn't receive very well. So he decides anyway, though, he's going to get a patent for it the following year, and he opens Savage Repeating Firearms Company in 1894. The idea was he was going to produce a hammerless rifle, all right, with smokeless powder. In 1898, he opens a little hub on Broad Street to manufacture the .303 caliber lever-action rifle. As I told the Scope group, and then I told the History Club, and then the Paris, I don't know anything about guns. I don't want to know anything about guns. I don't like guns. But they were really enamored by that number, so I threw it in. Okay. They said, oh, yeah, and they're all doing, they're talking to each other at the little gun organization. Sure, okay. But apparently it was a pretty interesting gun for those of you that know them. He then moves to Turner Street and manufactures cartridges while he's there, and we know that to be the former Charlestown Mall. In 1903, he's got all his guns being manufactured at Broad Street. But in 1905, he sells it. He says, I'm done. And he goes to San Diego. This time we're going to raise oranges. We're going to grow oranges. So follow his life. I mean, it's very interesting. But while he's in San Diego, he and his son work on a radial tire, and they open the automobile factory known as Savage Tire Company. He gets involved with another gun manufacturing company with his son Arthur J., but by 1938, he commits suicide and dies. Okay, so that's him. So now let's talk about the company. This is a picture of John Fire Lame Deer, a Lakota holy man. He was looking for guns, and he made a deal with Savage that Savage could use the famous Indian head as its logo from 1919 till today, 100 years later, as long as Savage Arms would sell guns at a reduced rate to the tribe. And ever since then, that has been the famed logo of Savage Arms. Okay? So, the first place, Burchard Lane between Liberty and Whitesboro Streets. They used buildings for multiple things. I was at the Bottle Club meeting recently, and Fred Capozella's here, another historian, and he was saying how buildings were used for multiple entities. And as they were publishing the Utica Herald, Frank was just a kid there in 1894 writing his article, and just got out of college. And he decided he was going to start at making his gun there. But he quickly outgrew it. But while he was there, this is one of the first guns he patents, called the Model 1895. And I don't know how many of you can read any of that stuff, but it was very descriptive, very detailed, okay? And he sent this to the Marlin Firearms Company out in Connecticut. That's one of the things you're going to see with this is a lot of other companies become involved, and the manufacturer has a tendency to shift to various places, mostly in the Northeast. So now we're going to go over to the Savage Arms we know on Broad Street. From Howard Ave to Hubble, then to Broad, or Hubble and Broad, then to Turner Street, he found some investors, and there was quite a list of 40 or so people. The most famous that we know, and I teach at Proctor, so I always like to include the Proctors. And Thomas R. and Mariah Proctor were big investors, stockholders in the company. And you could just by that picture see the massive size of the company. That's obviously not in the beginning. Okay, going backwards a minute, the second, as you see here, is 13336 Broad Street, and the signature model gun is known as the 1899. All these pictures, by the way, are in books down in the collection downstairs. There's a box or two of stuff. You can make an appointment with Patrick or any of the volunteers downstairs and look at some of these ads. They're very descriptive. They're pretty to look at. And I like the 50s and 60s ones because they're in color. So now we're into 1900, and this company now is really producing guns that are mostly for sporting, okay, going hunting. And the directors are on the bottom left. Thomas Proctor was a vice president of the early company, and you see some other names you may know: Foster, Dunham, J.A. Roberts, all contemporaries of Joe Bottini. And Joe, did you hear that? Turn your hearing aid up, you'll be all right. Anyway, I break their chops because they're my friends. But anyway, these were pretty powerful people, impressive people from early in Utica's history. This is my favorite ad of the Model 1899. And as you're staring at it, you see there's a lot of things about it, but the top of it is the lever of the gun. Okay, if you can see that. And again, hunting. So as you look at that one, it says the grizzly bear, the most savage of the whole family, sometimes attains a length of 9 feet and a weight of 800 pounds. Its ferocity is so great that it will attack man unprovoked. But with a Savage 303 rifle, a good marksman can meet the beast with safety. So that was pretty cool. And you'll notice it only cost $21.50, which was a pretty penny back then. Okay. for shooting in the Rockies, the Northwest, Canada, Newfoundland, Maine, etc., wherever big game abounds. The 303 Savage is the gun to pin your faith to. Ask the most successful big game hunters. It is sold by the makers under an honest guarantee. So that's a pretty cool ad, but the lever is my favorite part. So, okay. This one, I don't know if in the back if you're going to be able to see it, but the intricate design of the metal parts and the wood was pretty cool. You can engrave this gun for $5, but this regular barreled rifle at $18.99 is a $20 gun, okay? And it was selling pretty well. But we're getting towards World War I now. Okay, oh, here's a picture of what the original building looked like, and on the second floor, it was a shooting gallery. So right on Broad Street, they would be able to practice with their new rifles. This just tells you how the models changed over the years. Obviously, 1905 is when Savage leaves to go get those oranges, and a new company has come in, the new owners. Eventually, it'll be merging in 1915 with the Driggs Seabury Ordnance Company in Pennsylvania. And by 1915, Driggs is the real company, but it still utilizes the Savage Arms name. And now they're manufacturing handguns. The war in Europe breaks out, and Britain is prepping, so they make a contract with Savage Arms in 1915, and they're going to get what's known as the Lee Enfield machine gun, okay? This long-arm gun is going to be the go-to gun for the British during World War I. A rifle, I said machine gun, that's coming, I apologize. Okay, and you can see the practice at the bottom here. And then the United States is going to get involved in 1917. We don't go to war till 18, but in 17 they're going to start prepping, knowing that it's coming. And so the Navy starts to contract to Savage Arms to buy some guns from Driggs Seabury, which is Savage Arms. It becomes the most widely used machine gun. Here's the Lewis light machine gun and how intricate it was. And again, this is the most widely used one of World War I. This is actually in our collection downstairs, that booklet. I took a picture of it. 12,500 produced for Britain and Canada right here in Utica, New York. It's quite a bit of production for our city. Okay, you can look at the pictures there. Here are some better pictures, okay. By Armistice Day, 32,000 machine guns produced. You'll see that the men are using them. For those of you that aren't familiar with World War I, men fought in trenches, and they would have the ability to use a high-powered machine gun. Okay. And here they're learning how to use, there was a gunnery school here. This is not our gunnery school. I couldn't find pictures of it, but it's just an example that soldiers would come here and learn how to use the guns that were produced, especially the Lewis gun, Lewis machine gun. And they would stay at the YMCA, the old YMCA, okay, which is pictured in the top left corner. So we had teachers here, and it's pretty cool, the picture on the right. It looks like the man is blindfolded trying to put the gun back together, but I couldn't tell. I've seen that in movies before. All right. These are some of my favorite women holding the Lewis machine gun. A little afraid of them, not going to lie. Perfect example of why I never got married. My wife would probably have one of those. She'd have it right by her at all times. But, I mean, that's pretty impressive. These are, by the way, women police in the New York Women's Police Reserves. Her name, the one holding the gun, is Captain Elise Riegner. So, okay, so now World War I is over, and what do? There's no need for military rifles, so they go back to producing sporting rifles. The problem was by the end of 1918, we have to lay off all the workers, and that was 6,000 people that were laid off. Some came back, about in 1919, about 2,000 returned, and they were making rifles back for the idea of sportsmen, okay? When they came back, they were greeted with things like a new restaurant in the building, on the campus. It's more than a building, it's 14 buildings. A grocery store and a dance hall for people at work at the company to use. The picture on the left is an overhead view of the massive size of the corporation. And in 1920, Savage is purchased by, well, Driggs is purchased by J. Stevens. J. Stevens is a very famous organization, a production company of guns, and they buy it in April of 1920, and they also buy the Westinghouse Electric Company for $1.5 million, $21.2 million as of last year. Savage has been around since 1864. Excuse me. J. Stevens has been around since 1864. The quality of their rifles is, well known. When the two merge, it becomes the biggest rifle manufacturer, sporting arms manufacturer in the U.S. Here are some of the new guns that are being produced. Okay. For those of you that are connoisseurs, I'll let you look at them for a minute. Still trying to diversify in the 1920s. Zephyr air conditioners is bought. It's held on to for about 10 years, and then it's let go. Savage also goes out into Ohio. And again, you're going to see this more now as the 20s come, and then especially after World War II. Here are some pictures of the Turner Street facility. Savage bought it outright after World War I for $107,000. And this is why it was such an important manufacturer in our area. 3 railroads, a parking lot that held 2,500 cars, a total of 16 buildings, I said 14, 32 acres, 723,000 square feet between Utica and Frankfort. Massive, massive corporation. Okay. We have one of the, is it the one on the right? We do have it in the back, yeah. In the, you can look at it later on in the vestibule. There is one of the washing machines. They start to produce washers and dryers in 1923. And if you want to see one of the washing machines, they are in the back. Page Lewis Arms Company is bought in 26, A.H. Fox in 1929. So the Fox Company comes from Philadelphia. In 1930, Crescent Firearms, Davis Warner Arms, they're purchased. And now we have a plant in Massachusetts, which, by the way, is where the current Savage Arms is, in Chicopee Falls, Massachusetts. Okay? So, again, the company is expanding, but not for military reasons. And in 1939, we have the start of the war. Savage is going to begin to ramp up their production. By 1940, 2 million guns are going to be ready to be used in Europe. Okay, so in 1941, we're not in the war yet, but Savage Arms receives a contract from the government for in today's money, $1.7 billion, excuse me. 89 million back then, okay? The war is progressing, and shortly thereafter, that contract, another $500 million contract, is secured to produce rifles for Russia and Great Britain. Some of you may know the Lend-Lease program, one of those programs that Roosevelt utilized so that he could get around the neutrality part the United States was practicing in the 1930s. The idea that any country at war could come and we would lend them or lease them the materials they needed, but it also went hand in hand with the cash carry policy. You had to pay cash and come and get it. So that was the second part of it. But this was a way to get around it, and Utica benefited from it. And you can see the people working, a lot of women working in the corporation. I love this picture. The Tommy gun was produced here. 1.4 million of them are going to be produced for the war. You see Churchill holding one, and on the left is the guy that is the inventor of it, John Thompson, and that's the famous machine gun. I have a friend that's down in Florida. His father was in the FBI. He's 91, and his father was in the FBI in Chicago, where Capone was, and he had one of these at home. So when he was growing up in the 30s, his father's Tommy gun was in the closet. So thought that was pretty cool. So what happens between 41 and 45? Tremendous amount of production. You're going to see 8,500 employees between Utica, most of them in Utica, also in Massachusetts, or 8,500 here, 13,000 total, 5,000 in Massachusetts. 1 million Lee Enfield rifles are going to be produced just for Britain alone, right here on Broad Street. Savage produces 300,000 Browning aircraft caliber machine guns, a production of 55,000 guns per month, 2.5 million machine guns, submachine guns, and infantry rifles by the end of the war. I mean, that's what's happening right here in our city. And some of you, I know at the end, are probably going to say, my father and my mother worked there, and they produced them. Maybe some of you did. I don't think you're that old, though. So you coming around is the booklet in the top left corner. Make sure you get the one that Joe Bettini's hiding. He's probably sitting on it. He wants one. But these are programs that were handed out in 1942, August 18th, 80 years ago, for the first time. It'll be a total of 4 times they'll get it. They received what's called the E for Excellence Award. Companies around the country earn these as companies who did phenomenal work on behalf of the military effort. And a brigadier general came here, as you can see on the left. A flag was flown, the Army E Navy flag, Army Navy E flag for excellence. It was a massive production here that day as employees were taken off the assembly line. They came out, they went through a tremendous parade. The military was here. In the middle is the picture of the Gold Star Mothers. Mayor Carew, who was the mayor at the time, addresses it and addresses the crowd, receives the designation. When I gave this talk a couple of weeks ago at the History Club, a woman said she still had her father's pin. So that was, I don't know if we have any in the collection. We might in the box. I didn't see any. There are a lot of neat artifacts down there, but they all received a pin. Here is the guy that runs the company at this point, Fred Hickey. He's receiving the flag, okay, the pennant to fly over the company grounds. And you start to see these pictures are a lot better in the book, so take a minute and look at them. You can see the manufacturing going on and see how the people are working. And Senator Keating, Meade. What senator at the time? I'm working on something else, so I forgot what senator. Senator Meade. Senator Meade was there, General Gillespie, Colonel McPike, a lot of military people were there, and you can see the cartoon. It's actually in the book. I had to put it in. And it's Hitler not realizing about Savage Arms, and it says, "Why didn't someone tell me about those goddamn Savage production checkers? I don't know." Anyway, he's really upset about the Savage Arms. So they put that right in that booklet. I don't think you could do that today, but and you can see the men working on the assembly lines. Okay. Then the war's over, and almost immediately the contract is canceled. Wow. Now that's a punch in the gut. Okay. When the Germans and Japanese surrender, the government said, "We don't need guns anymore. Contract's canceled. All done. No more money." So now you've got 8,500 people that are like, what the heck's going to happen? And exactly what we thought. They're going to go home. They're going to get laid off. And from 1945, 6 to 1956, you're going to see a tremendous amount of layoffs. 10% of the population of the workforce is still there by 1950. But they're not producing guns. They sent that to Massachusetts, and they're still making them there. Here we're going to make ice cream cabinets, or we're going to make, lawnmowers, okay? By 1954, 4 years later, only 575 people Remember, this was 8,500 at the beginning. Now we're down to 574, and they're producing lawnmowers and ice cream cabinets. They did produce another company to help them produce the ice cream cabinets, but it's never going to be the same, okay? The entire sporting rifle division from 47 till today is in Chicopee Falls. Here's some pictures of what they were producing. And by June 22nd, 1955, the company decided that it wasn't worth staying open. They combined all their manufacturing to Chicopee Falls, and in essence, the doors are shut. So now it's for sale, okay? And in 1956, the following year, Spira Univac came. They lasted until about 1970, something like that, Frank, roughly. And in 1976, Charles Gaetano bought it and made it an outlet mall in 82, okay? And that stayed open for about 9 years. And then it was a business park type of thing. Okay, as you can see here, the Backstreet Brewing Company was there. We used to have happy hours when I got hired at Procter in the early 2000s, and we would go every month a different place. So the month we went there, and it's vivid in my mind, so I remember it, we go there, and it was a beautiful bar, all hardwood floors and hardwood all throughout. It was gorgeous. And you walk out, and you can go and you can see the canal in the back, and you look in, the canal's filthy and the fish are glowing. And I said, that can't be good. Remind me not to order fish here. And I'm told by some people in the other times I've given this that disposal of waste was not always done in the proper manner. Hence the reason, and a woman who worked there said, she worked for Gaetano, and she said she used to go out in the back and yeah, those fish glow. They glowed. So Mike Cancella had tried to save it, but it didn't work. And then it laid empty for quite a while until the fire in August of 2020. I was told at the History Club that I saw the drone video, and it might still be on YouTube. They sent a drone through the whole thing a couple of days after the fire. Gorgeous. I mean, terrible, but gorgeous view of the devastation. And you can see a little of it in the top right. Prior to that, though, I used to have students that would come up and say to me, Mr. Parotta, we went in there and took pictures. I said, no, you didn't. Don't go in there. Another woman said that the oils from the guns were so saturated in the woods, on the floors and stuff, that's what caused that massive fire to continue the way it did. This was from the woman who worked for Gaetano Corporation. So in 1960, as I said, they're closed, but they're not dead. The company is in Chicopee Falls, okay? And since 2021, Westfield, Massachusetts is near Chicopee Falls. They're still there. Savage Arms is now acquired by Emhart Corporation, and it's still in use. And the guns now are used by our Olympians in the Olympics. And that is Savage Arms. Oh, stop. Now, don't ask me any questions about guns, because I don't know the answers. But if you want to ask me anything else, I'll be happy to answer those, or try to at least.
So where did all the money go, Lou?
What money?
The guys that were in charge and running this place.
Well, I think it was losing money at that point, and they just shifted it to Massachusetts, whatever was left. So I'm sure Savage didn't leave as a broke guy.
What's the connection, if any, between the Savage Arms and the Remington Arms?
I didn't find any. I think they were just two competing companies. Somebody asked about, what role did Remington have? I didn't study Remington, so I don't know. And maybe somebody here knows. Frank, Joe, Dick Williams is here. They may know better, but I didn't find any connection in anything I read. So, that was good. That was an easy one. All right. Oh, Rock, come on. Jeez. Figures the media's got to be here.
Nice job, Lou. Wow.
Thanks, Rock.
Any reason why they decided to move a lot of the production after the war to Chicopee Falls instead of Utica?
We were talking about it at the History Club, a couple of people, and we just think it was a tax thing. The cost of doing business, that they figured that. The people that had studied this before me figured that that's what it was. It was just the cost of doing business was cheaper there. I don't know if that's still the case anymore, but we know the tax levels in Massachusetts rival ours anyway, so.
We have from our virtual viewers, who eventually bought the original building on Broad and Hope.
I don't know.
He doesn't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I know it's there. I saw it. So I'm being told Gaetano bought the one on Hubble.
Gaetano apparently bought a complex from the city of Utica to turn it into what was becoming the malls of America.
No, right, but that was Charlestown part. She's asking the Hubble part. Right, but what about the Hubble one on the down further?
I think that was left off.
Left off of the purchase? Okay. Yeah, I don't know who bought it. I know the building still stands. I drove by it. So, okay. Well, now go buy some books. Anybody not a member here? I'm not volunteering here for nothing. I want 2 or 3 of you to become members. George has got the applications. And feel free to put $10, $15, $20 in for the telethon. I'll be on the phones. I'm a big fan here, so just so you know. Thanks for coming, everybody.